Let's summarize what we know. We know that Aldon Smith had a confrontation with a man who has a relationship or is married to his sister, a relative of his. That confrontation ends with the other guy, the sister's spouse, with visible marks on his neck. He calls police, says that he was choked out by an acquaintance of his whom he eventually identifies as Aldon Smith. This happened at 7:30. The confrontation started in a coffee shop and carried on outside, went outside after they were arguing. There were Aldon Smith, the sister's spouse, a man that came with Aldon Smith to the meeting, and then two more guys that joined him there. We know that the victim, or the guy who's identified and making the claimant, had visible injuries. Police recommended he go get medical treatment. And what he told the police happened is that an argument escalated, became physical, and he was choked unconscious. We don't know what Aldon Smith's version of events are. What we do know is the Instagram story you just mentioned. Also, someone, most likely his agent, told Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk that Aldon Smith will tell people that he didn't touch the guy. And the question is, if you're the Seahawks, what do you do? You don't have to make a decision right now,
right.
But his arraignment is July 15th. It's very likely, I would say, that there's no legal resolution to this case when training camp starts. Do you want him showing up for training camp with this charge sitting over his head? What do you do if you're the Seahawks? He has a long history of substance abuse. He has a previous allegation of domestic violence. There was also, I think, there was an incident in an airport, right, in which he ended up, I don't know if he was arrested that time. I think he was making threats about having a bomb.
Oh, yes, there was that. Yeah.
I think that happened in an airport. What do you do if you're the Seahawks? And then, like, the flip side is, hey, this is kind of the worst fear. This is the concern that people would have had when you signed Aldon Smith, that something like this would crop up.
Exactly. This is what can happen. You give a guy a chance after this. To answer that first question that you asked, for the Seahawks, I think their position is, we're going to figure out whether or not he lied to us, and if he lied to us, bye. I do wonder if what the agent likely told Mike Florio is what Aldon Smith told the Seahawks. But when I look at just that one piece of evidence that has since been deleted, and I don't know if this is necessarily evidence, but if somebody choked your pregnant sister, spit in her face, kicked her in the back, what would you do? It's almost as if he is suggesting there was reason for this action.
Right.
Now, if that's something that took place in the coffee shop, okay. But if this is something that took place before, which is why they were having the discussion,
he summoned him there because we're going to talk about what you did to my sister, and that conversation ends up with him choking the guy unconscious.
And I just got to wonder, judgment-wise, what do you think you're going to accomplish with a verbal confrontation with somebody that has done something like that? I mean, I suppose if you're Aldon Smith, you're a big dude, and he sees you in person, he's probably thinking to himself, oh, yikes. But I also think in that moment, the only thing that would probably be acceptable, and again, this is all speculation, for Aldon Smith to potentially act out against this other man would be if that guy struck first. And I have a hard time buying that someone's going to strike Aldon Smith, all 6'5", almost 300 pounds of him, first.
There's also the question of, why did you go... If you're going to confront a guy about having assaulted your sister, there's a decent chance that conversation is going to escalate into a confrontation, and is that something you should have been engaged in? I have no problem with Seattle signing Aldon Smith. And the fact that he's been arrested doesn't make me think, oh, this is terrible on the Seahawks' part and they should have known better. They took a very low, they didn't risk or guarantee him money or anything like that. And I think signing him, given the fact that he had stayed on the straight and narrow for a year, is a reasonable decision by an employer. The second part, though, about do you continue to employ him, I'm not sure how many scenarios, if there was a physical fight between these two, I'm not sure in how many scenarios I would say, okay, I'm okay keeping him if he fought. If he says that I didn't touch the guy, then it becomes very clear-cut for me, where I'm like, okay, if there's any evidence there was a physical confrontation between you two, then you're cut. You have to have told the exact truth of what happened. At this point, if he has not told and spelled out to the Seahawks exactly what happened, or if what he spelled out turns to be untrue in any regard, I'm not sure if there's any situation, though, if they ended up getting into a fight where I think, like, yo, you know, I get what happened. I get it. Wasn't it wasn't an outcome any of us wanted, but I'm not going to fire you over that, because putting yourself in that situation, there are so many alternatives you have to that conflict resolution, right? If you're mad because of something, very understandably mad because of something that's been done to your sister, there are other ways to solve that. You're not the best person to go and set this person straight.
Right, and he's the guy that has to know that, given all of the strikes that are already against him. It's Danny and Gallant, 710, ESPN Seattle. I'm Paul Gallant. He is Danny O'Neill. There is something else about Aldon Smith that had me not very excited when I saw the signing, and this was before all of the stuff that we have seen since then. I saw that the Seahawks had brought in Aldon Smith, and I thought to myself, you know, last offseason we heard all these people raving about Aldon Smith, the shape he was in, he's changed. We know he's an incredibly talented player. We saw him with 3 sacks against the Seahawks last year, but he only had 5 sacks the rest of the way. He was super cheap. And Dallas, who is notorious for bringing in guys that have needed second acts to their careers after maybe making decisions that they regret, foolish decisions, violent decisions, they and their terrible defense didn't want to bring him back. So it's not a great sign. Low risk, high reward potential, I suppose. Maybe it's a medium risk now. But that was something that I saw, and it kept me from being excited or encouraged by the Aldon Smith signing. And then you add in the track record that he's already got.